So when I say the thing of like strong hands, strong core, I'm really saying like pay attention to what your hands are doing. They're already doing really great, strong, creative, smart things, but are you aware of what they're doing while you're doing the activity that you're doing? Or are you just like, for example, a barbell deadlift? What are your hands doing? Oh, well, I have my regular grip, I have my supinated grip, or I have mixed grip. Or I have narrow and I have wide. Okay, that's a starting point of like position. But what are your hands doing when you lift? Oh, they're gripping. Okay, they're gripping, but how are they gripping? You know, we've been taught like, okay, well, you can rip the bar, or you could try to bend the bar, you could try to pull the bar apart, you could try to squish the bar. That's closer to what I'm talking about or what you can experience. But again, it's just another thing that you can do to become more aware of what you're doing. I'd say like every lift is an expression. Everything you do physically is an expression. You can lift weight and express yourself.
Right.
Like, you're lifting really heavy weights, you're throwing something overhead, or you're swinging it and you feel flowy. I like to think of it, you got your barbell, so really strict, like it's a fixed grip. And then if you're strapped in, it's also fixed, or you have something that's not fixed at all, like just free hands. What can your hands do? So there's two ends of the spectrum. Fixed in a position, even if it's a dumbbell, a kettlebell, however you want to position your hands, there's fixed ways to do it. And then when your hands are free, there are many things that you can do with them. But can you do those many things with the same intent when you're gripping on something fixed? So that's the thing too, like defining strong. To me, strong means you're aware and you're able to influence what they're doing. Not as like my hands have six packs. Like that's another way to look at strength. But when I say strength, I'm saying neurologically, are you connected? Proprioceptively, are you connected? And are you aware of what your hands are doing while they're holding something, right? So let's say the epitome of what your hand can do, and just, this is not everything it can do, but we can think it can supinate, it can pronate, right? We can also kind of roll our hands and roll our hand, like we can roll our fingers. So our finger can pronate and pull us in, or supinate and pull. So I like to think thumb turns in, like if you just go with your hand out in front of you, and pull your thumb in as tight as it can go, keep pulling. It's going to start to steer your hand a certain way. And typically as the thumb is coming in, we can pronate. Or if you go pinky coming in and keep going pinky, that will start to supinate you eventually, because your pinky rolls inward, it'll go that way.
And so you can do it through the forearm as well. You immediately feel that. Yeah.
You can see motion happening here. So fascially, we are integrated beyond our hand. And fascially, that comes all the way into our core, but really it goes into everything else. It's just a continuum. So if we're aware of what our hand is doing, when we grip, if you just squeeze your hand, you can feel muscles contracting. But what's also happening is there's a whole sheet of tissue surrounding that entire arm, the nerves, the blood vessels, the bones, everything fascially integrated to the rest of your body. So when I move my hand, I know that I'm affecting my whole web. I may not feel that, so I don't really know it, but do this for me. I learned this from WEC, actually. Bring your middle finger to your palm.
So I was just going to bring this up, man. I just saw it. Middle finger? Middle finger. All right.
Yeah, I take. So he's got a way of doing it. I like to go middle finger, ring, and pinky, so it stacks like a triangle.
Oh, okay.
And you can use your other hand to help you, because it's fun. I've been doing a lot of practice of this. And then index smushes down and in, and then the thumb covers, so it creates your core fist, right?
Oh, man.
This right here, and I was like, Doug, what kind of woo-woo witchcraft stuff are you trying to pull on me? Like, all right, this feels different, but it's just because I haven't put my hand there. But if I try to like roll my wrist any different direction, like flexion, extension, or deviation, whatever way you want to rotate, pronate, supinate, I feel that steering the rest of my body. Like if I go out in front with that core fist and try to squeeze all those fingers to the center and rotate in, I have no doubt my shoulder and my spine move with it. I can try to isolate, but if I get stuck. If I make a regular fist, I can keep going and I can kind of integrate my shoulder, but it's not as tense. So like WEC says, like, FIST stands for fascially integrated strength training, FIST. So that fist, when you pull those together, it triangulates your fist. Your fingers go inward. It's almost like just doing this. Kind of how a boxer would tape their hands. They don't tape them like that. You're gonna break a knuckle. It's now your wrist is isolated. But as soon as you go here, it triangulates and your fingers point back to your wrist. Everything is has more integrity through the system, more tension in the system. So tensegrity, that I will throw more force because my whole body's connected, versus if I hit, I might have some kind of wrist bail out somewhere because it's not as
Right.
tense. So if I have more tension in the system, I pull the springs back even further. That's now going to influence what's happening at my center.
Right.
So when I think smart hands, like when I'm holding the rope, I hold it more like this now. I go middle finger, index, and thumb, and I'm like kind of looped
I've
around
noticed
there.
that a couple times, man. Yeah,
My
because then
pinkies are free.
Yeah, dude. Because then I thought I saw that, and this is old school thinking in a way. But then I was like, oh, have I been doing it wrong this entire time? Because I saw like it looked like your pinkies were flared. I'm like, oh, have I been doing it wrong? But then I'm like, wait a minute, like it's just going to create something different. Like you're just trying to achieve. So, but yeah, so I hear that.
So yeah, there's no right or wrong here. This is simply like, what are you doing, and do you feel something different? And it's so subtle. Like proprioceptively, we don't really know what's going on. We kind of have theories of like, oh yeah, proprioceptively, like I'm responding to certain proprioceptors in here that are responding to mass and momentum and change of direction, and then pressure versus tension. So learning that through the Gray Institute of different proprioceptors that we can influence, they're influenced by mass, momentum, different forces and tensions and pressures, so that your brain's gonna get more movement data to make a more efficient or effective call in real time. Like if we were so aware of our proprioceptors every second, we wouldn't be able to do anything else but just focus on where we're at in space. So we have proprioceptors to handle that behind the scenes. But if we can influence our proprioceptors by changing directions and angulations and tensions and pressures, why not do it? So that my body or your body has more movement data when it comes down to I need to react to I'm crossing the street and a car's coming, I gotta get out of the way. Am I connected all the way to here where I can whip my hand and I can dodge it, or I can place it on something, get it out of the way? Or am I so much here that my arms are getting left behind, and I need that split second decision to the end of my fingertips and my toes so that I can get out of the way? Or somebody throws something and I want to like catch it real quick. Is my hand aware of where it is in space, or do I go here and I just barely miss it? I want to have perfection. I want to know exactly where I'm going when I need that motion, right? If I need to go somewhere, get out of the way. If I need to react to somebody coming, if I just need to be able to be calmer in a situation, if my body knows where it's at in space and it can do these things with my hands, and like we can do like infinities, pinky leading and thumb leading, while at the same time having a conversation with you, I could pull a lot of cool little strings here without you know what's going on, and I don't even know what's going on. But I'm aware that you're picking up motion data. My hands are expressing what's really going on internally, and we can have a more robust conversation about it. We can have a more robust experience in this time now. And I'm all about like squeezing the juice out of every single second of life. But what does that mean? What does that feel like? Well, I have 2 hands, arms, a body, 2 legs, 2 feet. If I'm not aware of those, I'm not really squeezing the juice out of this moment. But if I'm like aware of how my hands are moving when I'm running and I'm walking, and now I kind of walk with this like figure 8 pattern like we have with the ropes, also this ringing technique that Gwet showed with me. Initially I was kind of like, this is just, I don't know what this shit is. What is this, right? But it felt good, and I was smiling while I was walking, and like, what's better than just having a good time living? You know? That's like that 24/7. But I think if we can connect with our hands on a deeper level, it's the same as like doing mudras and stuff. Like you have different things like in yoga, and you can interlace your fingers and it creates this meditative state. It's virtually the same thing, just with a different intent, right? And if we can start to address how our hands are, maybe things like arthritis, carpal tunnel, tendonitis, impingement, and these things that are happening in different parts of our body, we start to become more fully invested in our body and actually embody our space and potential in our sphere of where everything can move. I think there's merit to it. There's power to it, in the sense that now we're actually embodying our physical space, and we own our space. We're able to hold space for other people and for ourselves, without getting so lost in our limited beliefs of like, oh, I'm getting older, this is how it's going to be. Or, oh, I'm in pain, I might as well do nothing about this. Or I need to go to the doctor because I don't know what's going on. Maybe we have a deeper conversation saying, okay, this thing just happened. I recognize I'm having a thought of this discomfort, this pain, and it's leading me down a negative spiral. Can I do something with my hands that steers my shoulder, that moves my spine in a way that it hasn't moved in the past few days? You know, when was the last time somebody opened up not just through their shoulders to fix their posture, but
And-
supinated their palms, open their elbows, and then pulled into a coil and looked up and go, wow, I feel my whole posterior chain. Now we're getting somewhere. Versus let's just do this thing and it should work. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It's like, no, there's a deeper level we can go into there.
Yeah, heck yeah. So there's definitely some of that I can relate to. Some of that is that inner standing that I've heard you describe, but that, and I think you know what, most of it probably started with the whole lunge matrix, like going through a warm up, because I started with some of the experiences I have with my left shoulder specifically. It always has had this very interesting sensation where it almost seems like it wants to always pop out, like get rid of itself, but then it kind of comes back in. So I literally started going through the lunge matrix, and I just started rotating my hand in certain ways, because then the popping would stop. Or then I would do one more internally and I would get a much more significant pop. And yeah, and then I'm like, oh wow, so it kind of makes sense. And then once again, of course, I have seen some of your videos in which I've noticed whether it's the pinky flare, or I've noticed where you're going through certain motions and it looks as if you're carrying energy with you. And I love that regardless, but it looks as if there's something there for you, where I know that intent is very strong. So movement data is cool. I hadn't really heard of that before, the whole movement data concept and sending those signals back to like you said, if you create one thing here, it's going to affect everything else.
Well, and two, so bringing this to a more visual concept, so it seems to carry over better. Think about, I have a cup, right? And there's a string attached to it, and you got a cup. Right. And let's not say it's virtual. Let's say you're in this space, so we don't get too four-dimensional yet. But I've got a cup here, right? And then the string is right there, and you're on the other side of the table. If there's slack in that system, I'm not going to be able to communicate from this cup to that cup, and you can know what I'm talking about if I'm saying it through. Or can you sense the vibration? Or if we pull it taut, and now I say something, can you sense that vibration? And it's a very similar concept from what I'm experiencing. And this probably isn't exactly how it is, but it's a way to justify and make sense of something that we can't see, we just experience, we have all these cords and these nerves in our body. And a lot of times they're either compressed, they're smushed, like you got a pinched nerve or something. And so there's a lack of communication coming from a body part to your brain. We feel something in between, or there's referred sensation. Well, if we stretch those nerves, if we lengthen, right? There's one thing to reach overhead. It's another thing to reach end range motion overhead. It's another thing to reach end range motion posterior overhead. And it elongates this fascial meridian. That, I'm not saying there's specific fascial meridians. There's infinite, I think, in our system. But if we're aware of what we're trying to pull from where, we're trying to anchor something in, pull it apart to where's our end range. Well, I could do just my body, or I can bring the extremities in, and now I can start to steer that tension, and I can use my palm to my fingers to my pinky, and then I can feel something entirely different because I use the entire global web versus just it stopping at a wrist, or it's stopping at an elbow, which there's nothing wrong with. Maybe I want to drive just an elbow, but am I aware that that's my hand now? Or is it just kind of lackadaisical, and really what I'm stopping is just my shoulder? I can drive my elbow and I can pull that tensional line, or I could take that through my hand and I can steer it in different directions. That's going to then lengthen. I'm thinking about all the angles, right? I can lengthen here, or I can lengthen the back side, or I can lengthen the inside or the outside, and I can steer that line, and I can bring it through diagonals, spirals, pure plane. Fascial meridians, thinking about anatomy trains and Tom Myers stuff, really hints at all this without giving real functional examples. It gives like yoga postures and positions we can go into, but doesn't really carry over directly to function, which is why Gray Institute's pretty awesome, because they bring more the functional aspect of it, like lunges and locomotion and reaches and whatnot. But at what point are we just exploring somebody else's concept? And at what point are we exploring it for ourselves to make light of the truth? Because how you experience it is not how I'm going to experience it. And I'm not saying my way is right and your way is wrong. It's your way, it's my way. And together we can learn more about how to communicate with our body. Like our body is so much smarter than we can ever truly figure out. We know it's smart and we're figuring stuff out. But the cool thing is our body's already figured it out. Our mind is just catching up. It's like we're creating these things internally, and then externally down the road, a few years later, like, what's going on? My body hurts. But if we can shift our mindset to explore more, to be curious, and then to not necessarily figure out, but just to recognize and become aware of, our body has much better opportunity to heal itself. We can have a lot more joy in our life because we're not setting bounds. We're actually unbounding ourselves. And we can do that by exploring through our fascial web. And this is just Weck Method's core fist and like different signs and the mudras. They're not necessarily called mudras on his end, but I like the word mudra. It seems more like intentional and deeper and mystical. Right. I like the mystical side of it. And the more we can explore through that with our hands, we also have feet. We also got a nose. We also got ears. These may not move like the hand does, but there's still parts that are connected fascially that we could say, hey, like do a neck stretch and you can lean to your left. And you're like, all right. But if you lean to your left at the same time you lift your right ear, you're like, holy shit, that's a much more tension experience versus just falling and not being aware of actually what's trying to pull apart that space. So there's practical things we can do in our traditional lifts or our standard lifts that can just start to introduce deeper and deeper awarenesses and experiences that we may not know what to do with. We just are aware of.
Right.
But we can use them. Right?
Yeah. You know, that makes sense. And I think it brings to light a lot of observations that I've had within virtual training, within working with groups now. The lack of, I don't want to say exploration because I think exploration is a foreign word to people who are not actively exploring themselves or their sphere or their life. That's another conversation. I'm just meaning how people go so rigid without actually knowing it, I don't think. And for example, I see it most often on cardio days where there's more locomotion involved. Your body is required to move more. Naturally, I think you see someone, depending on, let's say, an icky shuffle through the ladder, you would see someone's arms adapt to that motion, the spine adapt to that motion, whether it's trying to stabilize, counter rotation, whatever that may be, the out of sync that's within ourselves. But I've seen people put their hands behind their back, put their hands behind their back, go through that motion. I've seen people literally with just hands straight down by the side. And I often wonder, should I cue them to let it go? Like, hey, look, just go. I want you to keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great with the icky shuffle, but just let the hands go and see what happens. You don't have to hold them down by the side. You don't have to hold them behind your back. Just let it go and see what happens. So I guess my question would be, do you actively cue or interact with groups, with individuals about letting certain things go, about maybe trying to create more of the data or more of a response? And hey, when you do that, just take your pinky and swing it inside, or take the thumb and drive it inside. Is that something you actively do for the general population, for clientele, for athletes?
That's a beautiful question, because I do see a lot of people rigid in the icky shuffle. It's in the ladder, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, right? So there's so much opportunity to bring in more body parts with actually gaining more efficiency, because you're creating tension in the system. So I like to think of like this ringing effect that now, whenever I do ladder work, whenever I run, whenever I walk, any kind of locomotion, it's innate. It just happens. And I'm aware I'm doing it, but I'm not trying to consciously change it unless I want to go faster or go slower and become aware of my patterning.
Right.
So for folks who have not started to, maybe they don't use their arms when they're running, or when they're walking, they don't use them as much as they could, or maybe they use them way too much and there's too much slack, and they're just like, they're getting out of sync, and now it's really about timing of your feet and your upper body, but really that's coming from your center line. Right. So for those folks that are just learning the ladder drill, they need to first gain awareness of their feet. And if they can't get their feet down, I can't add the hands in. I can't add the hips in. I just want to get you to step 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And over time, I know that they'll get better. But for most people, I don't think they're going to go take 20 minutes and go do ladder work and get really good at it.
Right.
They're going to do that drill for the 3 or 4 minutes that it is, be done with it, and then Like, oh
Right.
man, I love ladders, but you don't really dive into the ladder. So
Right.
I think there's a bridge that needs to be walked with every person saying, look, my goal as a coach is to make you the most efficient, effective mover and most in tune with your body possible.
Right.
However, that may not be your goal. So if I try to step over their boundary that they've set, they don't even know if they've set, but now I can start confusing the shit out of them. I'm giving them too many parts to move at once. I'm not hiding my cards. I'm just giving them everything I want them to do. I'm not making it an environment where they can be extremely successful. Though some athletes may want every little piece, most just want to get through the workout and enjoy themselves. If I'm making them too caught up, if I'm trying to introduce them to too many cues or intentions at once, I'm doing them a disservice. Because now maybe they're having not as much of a good time. They're actually focused on too many parts when they just need to focus on their feet. I'm going to focus on whatever the primary goal is on that drill, which is the pattern of 2 feet in, 1 foot out, 1, 2, 1 for that specific Icky shuffle drill. If they can demonstrate success with that and do it with ease, now I may start to add in, hey, let your arms stay at your sides. I know that their body knows way more than they do and way more than I do. But how can I bridge that gap for their body to experience even more efficient movement so that their body makes that choice naturally? Well, I might say, hey, let's draw attention to the system. Let your arms stay at your sides. Keep your elbows in tight. Naturally, their arms are going to start to do something that may be very inefficient at first and may look really silly. I'm there with them along the way saying, hey, listen, your arms are going to self-select what they want to do once you put them in this position, and it may throw you off. Give yourself a chance to discover. Give yourself a chance to play. You ain't going to get it the first probably 10 rounds you do it, maybe. But if you haven't really practiced your upper body and lower body at the same time, this is probably going to be a lifelong learning. But I can say, hey, if you are passionate about this and you want to get better, let's do some one-on-one and focus in on some specifics and build a progressive route where it's like, okay, feet work. Okay, now let's expand that footwork. Make it bigger leap. So it's 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And let's make it really fast. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Can I make that spectrum of effort, the range of motion bigger and smaller and speed slower and faster? And can they be consistent? Okay, we've covered that basis. Now it's time. I want you to not look at your feet. I want you to look straight ahead and trust that you can get through this and look down every time you need it, but don't stay looking down. Okay, now they're aware proprioceptively of what their feet are doing without having the visual cue of what their feet are doing. They're just getting the feel, the sound, the sense of what it's like to shift right and left and trust their body to restabilize. Okay, now let's build it up even higher. When you step with your right foot out, swing your left arm, and then it's 1, 2, 1, right arm, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. It may not be the most efficient, but they're starting to integrate their upper body. And then maybe I want them to start to get some more of that like ringing effect. Well, have they even played with the ropes before? Meaning, have they practiced their underhand and overhand figure eights? Because if they don't have a physical expression of that and actually doing it, it's all theoretical. Then they're like, I don't know what you're asking for. So we have to, it's kind of like, I envision a perfect world is where everybody knows what the ropes are when they're born. They know what a figure eight is without having a title to it. They know what a dragon is without having a title to it. They know their north, south, east, and west, but they don't have to necessarily verbalize that. Their body knows that expression of all the different ways it can go. I mean, that's an ideal world. And I think that that's silly to think that that's how we're going to be. But right now with where we're at in this industry, and not even this industry, in physical space right now, people are out of touch with how they can be because they've been told how to be and what to do and how to do it. But they haven't necessarily thought to expand that box. They've only given themselves their walls. I move this way and I move that way. If I move the other way, my doctor said it's wrong and I will hurt myself. That's some fucking bullshit. So, and that's what we're kind of dealing with right now is rewriting this code of our physical expression by unlimiting the bounds that we put on it because of how we grew up. As kids, there is no bound really until somebody says, stop skipping around. Don't jump on that wall. Get off of that chair like that. That's not how you sit. Be quiet. Shut up. Stop doing stuff. I mean, that's aggressive, but that's kind of what happens through grade school and then high school is sit still, pay attention, and do your work. Stop using your body physically. Go do physical education. Do your PE class. But that's you learn how to move, but not necessarily how to think about how to move. So like these are ways to move. But as a kid, you had all these different opportunities and options that you kept exploring unless somebody stopped you. And now we have this innate code that says it's wrong. Don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself. Be safe. And then we just share that with the world unconsciously. And I think that the bigger issue at hand with, I mean, we're kind of getting global with this, is like, just learn how to explore your space. And how do you do that? Well, we don't have a framework for that, but we do, and everybody's is different. And I think to think of it as we have this giant sphere, right? So setting the stage, just recognize you're in a giant bubble. Can you touch every edge of your bubble with your feet and your hands?
Right.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because you got a bubble, I've got a bubble, somebody else has a bubble. And if you just reach, you can touch every side of your bubble, and they're guaranteed you won't touch every single point of it, because I can reach here again and again, but how my body did that, maybe looking the same, but how I'm actually tapping that point in my bubble is a little bit different. Maybe it's that part of my finger, that part of my finger. It's all this motion data. How do we take advantage of understanding that bubble and not having to do every single thing every single day at every second of the day? Well, work on your poles, work on your front to back in reference to like related to you. What does front mean to you? What does back mean to you?
Right.
What side mean to you? How can you go to the side? Right? There's a lot of ways, and everything I did right there, my body self-organized to create that reach. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, my hand reached over there. It was like my body just shifted a little bit. My left foot pushed harder into the ground. I looked at it and I didn't even reach fully. I didn't even know which finger I was reaching. I was just reaching my hand. Right. So this becomes one unit versus multiple units. And so what I'm getting at is on that ladder drill, there are so many potentials.
Yeah.
But what can we do to help that person become more successful now? That's relative to the coach, your relationship with that athlete, what that athlete wants, where they've come from, where they're going, who's in the class. So, I mean, we have a course to start to consider those things, right? You went through the whole MDMC course. Right. We also have the spherical movement course, which helps to just kind of invite this framework, which came out today. Hell yeah, super excited about that. It's really simple stuff. I don't go into like a lot of deep details, like 3 to 5 minute videos of just, here's a lunge matrix. Here's how we're titling these things. Here's a reach matrix. Here's a single leg balance reach matrix. Here's how to do circles with your thumbs leading the way. Here's how to do circles with your pinkies leading the way. And what does that feel like? Or here's how to do infinities. And then here's circles or infinities on the sides of you. And it's like learning how to play in your space as an adult and go, I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, but it feels good. Yes. Right. Now you're here. Now you're here right now. Keep doing stuff that feels good, explore things that don't, and then try to bridge that gap so everything just feels fantastic. Or when something gets out of whack, you know a way to successfully go back to movement without saying everything hurts. I love when people say everything hurts, because I'm like, does everything really hurt? Or is it just seeming like the world's crushing down on you and we need to find some success? I'm pretty sure it's the second, unless you got really horrible peripheral neuropathy and every single thing in your body is idiopathic and we have no idea where it's coming from, and you just were put on this plane to hurt. I firmly believe that that's not the case, but I don't know what kind of karmas you had in your past life that brought you here.
Right.
I know you asked about the ladder, but we kind of went full circle there.
No, that's what I always appreciate it, man. I always appreciate that. That's awesome for sure. Heck yeah. Yeah, man. Man, oh man. Yeah, now I'm thinking of the sphere, and I'm thinking about how you move in the sphere, and yes, man, how you would use your hands doing that, how you would use your feet doing that. It's so interesting to think about where we are and just being out of touch. Heck, even with where I am and what I'm learning, I still know that I'm out of touch in some ways. And it happens all the time, whether I'm designing my own workout or I'm writing a workout program, or I see someone doing something and I immediately get caught in that little space between this is everything that I was taught what to think. And now it's like, now I'm transitioning into this, but this is how you can think about it. This is and
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
It's just a box.
Just like being able to comprehend that is like, hey man, it's okay what you know. It's not wrong. And you just want to be like, are you sure? Are you sure? You know, it's so.
Here, do this with me. I think it's a fun little drill, because we talked about energy balls, and I think that's chi. What is chi? It's just energy. But what does that mean? And it's something directly experienced and felt that everybody can experience and does. We just become muted, or that becomes muted, because we're so focused on the external as opposed to what's happening internally, which then once we focus inward, then whatever we do outwardly is that much better.
Right.
So do your traditional shit. Do all that stuff. Get jacked, get a pump. I love the traditional stuff. I love getting a pump. I love sweating. I love being humbled so much by load. But that's not all I do. That's something I want to experience, but it's, again, part of it. It's not the whole truth. So do this. Just go ahead and bring your fingertips together.
All right.
And try to make it like a really round ball. It may not be perfect, but just bring it to your heart. Know that that's your thoracic spine in a bubble. And your thoracic spine can extend. So tilt that circle backwards and tilt it forward. And I'm going to have you inhale as you lay back and exhale as you go forward. And as you exhale and go forward, I want you to smush your hands, like make a prayer hand, just smush them together. And as you open up, expand that ball a little bit. So you smush it and then you open it. Inhale, open those hands apart, let them separate, and then come back together. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just think you're expanding and you're compressing, right? And we got side to side. So bring that ball back together. Elbows are out and tilt side to side. Just go a little left and a little right. Tilt the ball back and forth. And then gradually separate your hands and just think we're tilting a ball like a steering wheel. A little right and a little left. And it's coming from right here in that heart. Remember, not just the elbows and the arms, but the thoracic spine, maybe even your hips a little bit. And do that same thing, but compress the ball.
So interesting, because the frontal plane, several times my shoulders have wanted to take over. My rib cage.
And nothing wrong with it. And then rotate. So back to your circle, take it to your right and take it to your left. Chest turns, even let your hips turn. And are you sitting or standing?
I'm sitting right now.
Cool. Stand up and let your back foot pivot. So as you turn to your left, let your right foot pivot. And then as you turn to your right, let your left foot pivot. So you can get more rotation out of that motion. And then even let that motion come all the way through your elbows. Like you're trying to throw your elbow around the corner as the other one pulls back.
And now you feel the shoulder blades kick in.
Yep. And then go ahead and expand this now. So as you rotate, turn your same side hand palm up. Pretend you got a ball on that one. And other hand goes palm down and reach it all the way around. Try and touch that hand and then switch it. Flip your right hand palm up as you rotate left. Excuse me, left hand palm up as you rotate left, right hand palm down, and then switch it. And I want you to think now, carry the ball between those hands so that the arms might have a little bend to them.
Right.
So you get your ball to the left and to the right. And really what we're doing here is type 2 motion. You're leaning and rotating that way, but we're doing it with the energy ball. So you're focused on what's happening in your center. And now go ahead and rotate your hands even further the way they're going. So let your same hand supinate more and your other hand pronate more. So you're really trying to roll and ring. Yeah, see how much more lateral flexion that gets you. You're using your hands to help facilitate motion at your thoracic spine and hips. And now as you come around, pull that ball in, let your elbow touch your hip, come around. And as you come through center, let the arm straighten. So you hold the ball way out here and then rotate to your left, elbow hooks into a coil and then come out straight and roll to the other side. And as you do this, make that ball really big. Let your elbow lift and other elbow pull to your hip. Yeah, go back and forth there.
Cool.
And so that's going to give you more motion into your lats. And we could say it's your coil. We could say it's an energy ball. We could say it's Tai Chi. We could say whatever we want to say about it. Give it a title, but just feel it. It's motion your body can do. And you're now expanding your potential in your sphere. Yeah. And then see how fast you can go back and forth, but keep your eyes straight ahead.
Ooh.
Look right at me and throw. Oh, so it starts to create some core. There's momentum happening through your anterior line of your core, your diagonal line. So front side's got to work to decelerate. Shoulders are working, and we're using our hands to facilitate stronger core muscles versus saying, hey, keep your arms in tight and just rotate. Well, no, let's draw some tension and play around with the steering of that force. One's more global. This is more global versus the arms together is more local at your thoracic spine. So that motion right there is a kind of a simple way to just invite energy and shift energy from one side of your body to the other so that when you go do like walking or something now, or go to throw something, your hand is attached to your wrist, it's attached to your elbows, attached to your shoulders, attached to your spine, it's attached to your hips.
Right.
And we're mentally there so we can use more motor units or use more of this elastic recoil in your fascia, or maybe use your spinal engine. Again, there's multiple ways to view this. There's no one lens, but the more lenses you can put on while you're doing this, the more effective you can be in the long run. It's not like you can't do everything right now.
Right.
But in your lifetime, you could do a lot of things.
Right.
So start to expand your potential of what you're doing and how you're doing it, so that years down the road, your body has more options, more variability, and it adapts to serve you in a more holistic, spherical way.
Right.
And I'm not trying to prove that to anybody, but if you feel something and you're like, hey, I'm just going to add this in for 5 minutes in my warm up, that can be enough. It could be 10 reps each way. It could be, I'm going to go hold 2 5-pound dumbbells and do that now. And you might go check out WEC stuff and go, hey, that looks like true balance. Sure. That's a way to view it. It's a lens to look through, but what's your lens? What are you doing? I'm just trying to feel some stuff today.
Right.
And I guarantee if you just did that with 5-pound dumbbells for like 10 minutes, you're like, you got a full body workout.
Right.
I think I just went for a run, a rock climb, and a hike all in one.
Right.
Cool. You can view it as that, or just recognize that you're moving your body through your sphere and you're connecting more dots, more pieces, so that you have more options, either for skill acquisition. Oh, I think I lost my. You still hear me all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. My headphones are almost dead. Just like give me like a sound. What the hell is that? But essentially, you have this opportunity now to connect with your body on a deeper level that can carry over to who knows what. And if you're communicating to your body parts at a different level, I mean, every part, every knuckle, every bone, you don't need to be so aware of what they are and how they're attached and whatnot. Just work through moving through your sphere, and that's going to move everything internally. It's kind of, we have this external sphere around us, but by moving through our external sphere internally, we're experiencing torque, rotation, twisting, coiling, bending, pushing, pulling, compression, tension, like all these different pieces that we could isolate and say, this is it. Or we could say, there's a lot of things I'm experiencing that felt really good. I want to play with that a little bit more. Yeah. And we can then go and teach people about it if we want to like dive into the weeds of what exactly is going on, knowing that it'll only hint at what's exactly going on. We're going to put it in some frame of reference in language that makes sense to us now. But again, it's only hinting at what's really going on.
Right.
So make your hands smarter, make your hands stronger. And by doing that, don't just do grip stuff. I mean, that's cool, but do grip stuff and then go squeeze your grip meter and reach it different ways.
Right.
And then use your little finger extenders and go reach it different ways. Right. I guarantee you're going to get way more out of that than just doing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I hear that. And I mean, the last few months have been really eye-opening. Let it kind of not really diving into the whole strong hands, strong core for myself, but more so just seeing what the actual response is without me thinking about it. If, for example, so the old school traditional way of lifting, doing a curl, your hands are supinated the entire time, or whatever type of curl you're doing, and so on and so forth. Like you said, you could flip the grip, you could go pronated, supinated, you could go on neutral, you can change the things like that. But not often are you going through the entire move and they're changing with you as you go. And so I realize that some aspects, when I'm doing the landmine, when I'm doing the pro pulse and I'm doing some skip, how often my hands are now changing and adapting as I go. And sometimes I'm like, I wonder if this is me going in my own little journey, but like, are they driving the motion? Are they adapting, or are they actually driving my motion right now to be able to create this? So it's been a really interesting concept. And that, as I was speaking to, I realize I see it more now when I watch people work out. I'm less inclined to sit there and look at I just see the hands and the arms. The extremities are really coming to light. And how my lens right now, I guess you could say, the lens that I have on right now is I'm very focused on, wow, it's so interesting. You'd think their body would want to do this, but something, whether it's emotional patterning, movement patterning, or all the above, it's just not allowing it to come out, to open up, to let go. And so yeah, man. So
I mean, simple integrations too can be like, do your single arm kettlebell swings, and with your free hands, do the AOK, or do the core fist, or open your palm or throw your middle finger up or do a thumbs up. I don't care what you do. Just can you maintain that while doing your swing? And there's probably gonna be some things you're like, oh, I lost connection with my other hand. I didn't even feel like it switched on me. We have tendencies that are not a bad thing. In fact, they're designed as attractor wells for us to move towards the path of least resistance, which makes us move potentially more efficiently. But if we're using the same path of least resistance, the same attractor well, the same habitual way of doing it without switching one thing, we're going to fall into a trap if that's how it's done. And when our body needs to visit a new position or try something new, our body's too rigid to allow it to occur. And you see it so many times in people who are untrained because they've just haven't trained anything. So the body's fallen into a certain postural pattern or head jutted forward, or they sit with their shoulders rolled in, or they're too aggressive here. Just do a kettlebell swing and say, CJ, F you, bro. I don't want to do this shit. And see what happens. It's going to be hilarious because people are going to be, are you flipping me off? You're like, no, I'm just trying this thing that CJ and Nick were talking about. Fascia integration, strength training, and it's going to create a fun conversation nonetheless. And probably a cool post because you're just putting energy through your hands. But be playful in that exploration and just say, can I do it? Cool, I did it. And you need to keep doing it or try something different. But I guarantee if you try to do a kettlebell swing while keeping your elbow coiled and your middle finger to your palm, and you do regular swings, you're going to feel a whole lot more out of that one kettlebell swing. And you probably won't have to go maximal weight. You'll probably just have to do a sub-maximal and do 30 reps of it and go, is that the coiling core? I feel my lats. I feel my obliques. I feel stuff. Is this okay? Yeah. Feel some shit.
Heck yeah. Yeah, there's a specific athlete that is part of the Gymnazo community. I know you know this person, but she's been working a lot with holding that coiling core during the sessions, and she was telling me about it I would probably say a week or two ago now, that the tension, what she feels through it and then releasing as like the round comes to an end, she says has been such a game changer in terms of how she's holding her body, the tension she has through her position, so on and so forth. So that's been really cool because once again, I've never done anything. I've never tried to hold a coiling core where I'm doing anything. And then, starting the landmine work, starting the pro pole, starting the rope flow, like I'm like, okay, how can I position myself in a way? So yeah. And the whole sub-maximal load conversation as well, like thinking about my right shoulder being a little bit lower, this contracted side. Now I've really been exploring every day. I want to lengthen this just a little bit more. I'm not trying to take it to a place where I'm going to hurt myself or go too far too quickly, but just how can I lengthen it a little bit more and hold that position? Maybe if I'm doing 3 sets, 2 of the sets are based more on lengthening the right than they are actually going right to left, right to left, right. So just exploring, man. I hear you. Yeah.
It's fun to recognize too, like now that I've been doing this a lot more the past few years, and really diving into coiling core, smart hands, strong hands, and bringing more intent and recognizing what comes out of it, like journaling a little bit here and there, in the hopes to make this more easily executed in populations that aren't focused on all the movement mechanics and the anatomy and physiology and the forces. I don't want people to be thinking about all that stuff all the time. I mean, that's where my mind goes. It's overwhelming. But there are things we can do physically that allow the body to understand that stuff without having to put names and titles to it and a language to it. Let the language be sensation and essentially this energy feeling or how your body's shifting, so that when you do feel something like twinge, you don't just ignore it. You're like, wait, can I adjust? Oh, it's gone. Like a lot of stuff that I get pain-wise doesn't last more than a few days. When it pops up. Like I've been sitting a lot more recently. I haven't trained really intentionally in the past week. Just been recovering from my Austin, Texas Spartan race. Did barefoot. We got one this weekend. So I'm like, I'm feeling stuff in like my low back and my shoulder that I'm like ignoring. But then I don't ignore it. I go after this. I go stretch my hips out. I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. Like, thank you. And just having those opportunities so when somebody comes in with back pain, instead of them having to go to the doctor and get a bunch of pain pills prescribed or a steroid injection to their spine, they can go like, oh, I have been sitting and traveling for the past 3 weeks. I probably haven't done any hip stretching, soft tissue work, or any strength. That's why my body's out of whack versus, oh, I must be getting to that age where things just hurt all the time now. It's like, no, dude, there's an opportunity. I know I'm not in my 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, but I've worked with people who have gotten out of pain because they've addressed these poor habits that haven't allowed them to do soft tissue hygiene or movement hygiene. And they're like, wow, movement is medicine. Motion is the lotion. Yeah, you're experiencing in real time what that can do.
Right.
But you have to do the work. You can't just be like, I should roll, I should stretch. You spend 2 or 3 days saying, I should do this, I should do that. You're going to go into a negative thought spiral.
Yeah.
I only know because so many people go there. And instead of going to the doctor first, disclaimer on this one, know how to communicate to your body, get a trainer, somebody who can help you communicate and build that bridge. But when you do have those discomforts, to not go into this negative thought spiral of I'm dying. It's like we're all dying, but we can live a little better while we're dying.
Right.
We can make it a little more enjoyable. We can thrive in this time and learn something as opposed to just surrender to the authority and say, all right, fix me. And you're like, you can't be fixed. You're broken for life. All right, this is how life is now. I guess I'm never going to hike again.
Right.
Doctor told me I should never squat again. Good luck getting on the toilet, bro.
Yeah, that's so true for sure.
Yeah, just helping people not have to process all this mentally, but just recognize that we have these poor, limited beliefs and thought forms that have been conditioned into us from a very young age. We can rewrite that script by doing the work, doing the physical practice, doing the soft tissue, go schedule massage, and do something about it as opposed to just accepting your fate. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves, but if it's in a poor environment to do that, it won't do it.
Right. Makes sense.
So.
Yeah. Heck yeah,
Hey,
man. I mean, that was, I appreciate the time there and a lot to explore. That's what I had for today, man. So if there's anything else you want to say, man, go ahead. But yeah, that's what I had for today. I appreciate the time. Yeah, dude.
Don't open that floor too long. It's dangerous.
Right.
I appreciate it, man. It's always fun to talk about these things, and you probably sense my passion about it. It's because I live in it every day, and by no means am I. Do I know it all or know anything close to it all? The more I know, the more I realize I'm completely at a loss of words.
Yeah.
But I can try to talk through it. So. The more conversations we can have, share knowledge, and share in unlimiting our beliefs and just sharing our experience, sharing our story. If it was getting out of pain, if it was solving a dysfunction, if it was gaining new strengths and hitting new PRs, those are all really good things to share, but don't make it all about you, except for your story. Make your story all about you. But then also give that platform to somebody else too, or that opportunity for somebody else to share their truth. Because you might really want to jump the gun and say, no, you got to do it this way, or my trainer's doing this. It's like, well, everybody's on their own journey, then their own mission, and many don't really care to solve their pain. They just want to be numb. But if they can be in an environment that can help them realize what not being numb feels like, and to actually empower yourself through movement and through training and through success thresholds, and not saying fitness is good or fitness is bad, but just saying fitness is an opportunity, we can all grow together in a much more collaborative way than competing against each other and saying it's this or it's that. It's like it's a lot of things that we're all learning to communicate better.
Yes, without a doubt.
Without a doubt, explore your sphere. That's one thing everybody needs to do.
Yeah,
or should do. I don't say should a lot, but you should explore your sphere, because we have it. We have the giant bubble. Play in it, observe it, explore it.
Heck yeah. Yes, that's one of the things I'm working on, kind of spreading out there now. How to articulate that and share that with people. Once again, like you said, though, without it being overwhelming. I'm very excited though to bring this up in a conversation about the sphere and just kind of see where it goes. Just see where it goes. So. Yeah.